What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got for you, well, let me just show you real fast. Yeah, that's not so good. And no, that was not some type of memory training you might see when power flips on real quick and then flips off and then comes back on. It has not come back on. And just for reference, yeah, we'll just hit the button one more time. So yeah, power's on for about 2 to 3 seconds. So I figured, well, this content just basically fell in my lap. So let's troubleshoot what's going on with this PC. Let's go. Alrighty guys, just a quick background on this PC. It is my daughter's PC and we put it together about 2 to 3 years ago with just the sole purpose of being able to be a PC that can access the web, do some school homework, because we built it during the height of COVID. It's since basically stayed that, so it's a real simple PC. It's a kind of a gigantic overkill case. I just so happened to have it on hand and went with it. But as we can see, it stays powered on for a whopping, looks like 3 seconds, if that. This just randomly started happening, and I'm suspecting some things, maybe the power supply. But before we tear into that completely, I just want to kind of maybe go through this with you guys and just kind of go on a little adventure on see if we can figure out what is wrong with it without completely disassembling the PC, without completely, say, removing the motherboard and going component by component. But that may be required, but let's jump into it. All right, just to show it one more time, I'm going to hit the power button up on the top, and it powers on and shuts off. So to me, that is hard to indicate exactly what's going on. I want to say, you know, the power supply is acting weird. It is an old power supply, which we'll probably get into, you guys seeing firsthand. But if it were a short, I don't think we would see that level of power on. I've seen shorts happen before, and typically when you have a short, it's like an immediate, like, abrupt shutdown. You hit the button and boom, nothing happens at all, and you just hear like a click noise of some type of electrical, you know, noise, whatever. But the fact that this thing kind of ramps up a little bit, we get a little bit of power, we get the fan spinning, we get the lights going, it's a little bit more odd. So I want to see what we can find out here. So I am a bit curious here, and this might make the video real short if this is the only issue, but maybe we've got some kind of weird thing going on with the BIOS and it's having trouble doing a first post test. So I'm going to actually remove because we don't have a BIOS button actually on this motherboard, I'm going to remove the BIOS battery and just do kind of a dirty CMOS reset and see if that will clear up anything here. What we'll do here first is I'm going to turn the power off on the power supply, unplug it from the back. I'm going to hit the power button a few times here just to make sure things are nice and drained, and we'll get that battery out of the motherboard and see what happens next. Alrighty, so with the CMOS battery, I don't see anywhere where I can actually jump CMOS headers or anything like that, at least anything that is clearly labeled on the motherboard. So we'll just kind of do it the old school way of popping out the battery here on the motherboard. There should be a little button to push down and out comes the battery just like that. And I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't have any power on the backside. Okay, and just kind of hit the power button a few times here and hold it down once. Okay, let's grab some power here and see what happens. I'm gonna plug it back in. All right, plug back in. Power switch on the back. We got some motherboard lights. Let's see what happens now. Well, now it seems like it's worse. Yeah, that is, it's gone from bad to worse. That looks like a short almost. So maybe we're onto something here. Wonder what happens if we put that CMOS battery back in. That's so weird. Yeah. Okay, and this is feeling more like a short now. It is interesting how the dynamic of what it was doing changed a little bit by removing that CMOS battery. All right, so I think what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to remove everything off the motherboard that is connected other than the power switch. We'll leave that for now. And obviously the main power components like the 24 pin and the 8 pin, and then see what happens. Actually, I have one idea before we go into depth of taking everything off the motherboard, is to address the thing that has recently changed, and by recently within the, like, honestly the last 2 years, but we did add some fans here that I did a review on and I put into my daughter's computer. I don't think that's the problem at all, but it wouldn't be the first time I see fans or RGB components causing a PC to do weird things. So I'm gonna flip it around, take off the back panel, and take a look at the controller and see if we just unplug that and see if we get a power on that is positive. All right, so here is our controller for the fans. I cable managed this way better than I thought I did, but cool. Anyway, I wanna just see if I can get this thing unplugged from power and if that makes any difference. So looks like we just have it tucked down in here in the bottom. So we've got power now from the controller disconnected. So let's see if with this disconnected, if we get anything positive. Okay, light on the motherboard. No, it is doing the same exact thing. So yeah. Okay, so it wasn't anything to do with the RGB controller. That wasn't causing a short anywhere. I couldn't have imagined how or why, but yeah, we're not at any better position here. So I think what I'll start doing is taking everything off the motherboard, like I said. All right, so that really wasn't much because like I said, this PC really isn't much. It's actually an APU as well, so we don't even have a GPU. So everything is unplugged. I even unplugged the hard drive indicator LED pin to only have power for the actual power button, 24 pin power for the motherboard, and the CPU power EPS plug. So everything else is unplugged. Let's see what happens here. Do we get anything new? I saw we had some power on the front. You guys probably didn't catch that. I forgot this case has some LEDs built in, so I'm gonna find that in the back and disconnect that as well. Okay, I found it. All right, that is now unplugged. I do have the hard drive plugged in the back, the SSD, so I'm gonna unplug that as well. So there's no power going to that. So now everything, there is only power to the main components I want. Let's see here. Nothing. It's like it's protecting itself. It's an internal short protection, although it still shows more life than I would expect. See, that fan spins for a solid 2, maybe 3 seconds. Well, I don't think there's anything else more I can do. Since we're suspecting power supply, I'm gonna pull the power supply out completely. We'll put a 24 pin jumper on it to see if we can plug it in and actually get it to run and stay running, or does it kind of exhibit the same problem? Alrighty, so here is our power supply, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm slightly ashamed. Definitely not my quality of component I would use anymore these days, but remember I said I built this during COVID, so I think power supplies were like insanely expensive or not available. And I just so happen to have this power supply on hand. I think I was using in some kind of basic build. I know I've had this thing probably well over 10 years, and I don't even know what brand it is. It's called Ultra. Yeah, Ultra Connect. So I am hoping that this is the issue. Yeah, again, like I said, this is not something I would honestly recommend ever using on my channel. Just something that I so happen to have on hand, and it worked. Long time, very long time. Like I said, I've had this 10-15 years. So let's see what happens if we jump it and actually see if we got some spinning fan. All right, so I don't have any fancy components for testing power supplies. They're just not something I really ever encounter much. Maybe I'll try to get some type of meter where I can actually do some like reads on the rails, but I don't have anything like that, which I think I need to get. But anyway, what I do have is a jumper. So what this is gonna do here is we plug this into the 24 pin connection, which I'll go ahead and do right now. And what that allows us to do is basically override the motherboard control with the power on. And as soon as I plug it in, hit the switch on the back here, we should, in theory, see the power supply stay running. My theory here is this thing's dead, and we'll plug it in, hit the switch, and the fan will run and stop just like what we saw in the computer. Hopefully, hopefully this is the only thing that has died. So, moment of truth here. Gonna get our power cable here, plug it in right there in the back. Here's the power switch, turn on, 3, 2, 1. Power on. Wow. I'll be darned, it is running. So, A running fan, obviously is not super indicative of if the power supply is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's very possible this power supply still is not good, and all I got is a running fan. But at least the power supply is on, and this is a measurement that we have some signs of life. So now this has kind of gone a different way. So I think what I'm gonna have to do here now is test the PC with a different power supply to rule this thing either dead or alive. But we don't know for sure until we get that other power supply plugged into the PC. So we're gonna do that next and see if that nets us anything different. Okay, so we've got the PC back up on the table, and I've got my power supply from my test bench that you guys might have noticed in my background. This is obviously just for testing, but let's see what happens. So I'm just gonna do this very quick and dirty and just plug it in with the power supply just sitting outside the system here, just so we can see if there's any different signs of life. Okay, so EPS power, motherboard power. I'm gonna leave all the other things unplugged and just grab my power cable here. Plug it into the power supply, and we still have our power switch connected to the motherboard, so we should be able to use that, and nothing else required. And so we can see the power supply fan spinning as well. Here we go. So actually, this at least shows us a little bit of something extra what's going on. So we have the same condition. If you guys saw it here, I'll move the cables a little bit out of the way, but the fan spun for just a second there on the CPU, but I didn't get anything on the power supply. It basically sent some power and shut it off real quick. And now it's doing absolutely nothing. This is interesting. All right, one more time. Yeah, there we go. I heard almost like a click noise. I don't know if I can hear that again. Yeah, it's like once it gets to a state, it definitely seems like it's a short protection that's going on. Which, do we have bad CPU? Do we have, this seems like a short. So like there's nothing plugged in other than just these two cables here, which is just for motherboard power and for CPU power. Everything else is unplugged, and we've got something going on. So I'm just kind of curious actually. So instead of using the actual power supply switch, is there a possibility that, something exposed that's causing a short somewhere inside the case? Maybe, but this is, on a whim. I'm gonna turn the power supply back on, and I'm gonna jump the pins. Holy crap. It's staying on. I was not expecting that. What? Okay, I got some coil wine on this power supply. What? I'm not sure if I've heard this thing coil wine like that before. Maybe just other things running I haven't heard it before, but I'm gonna flip it off. I was not expecting that. That was just on a whim before I start tearing things apart. So I'm gonna look at these cables, make sure there's like something didn't cut into them possibly and is causing a short. No, I mean, everything seems fine. It is very odd. Okay, well, let's give this another shot. Let's plug it back in and see if we can replicate that same issue. Okay, let's see what happens. We've got the power switch cable plugged back in. Okay, there it goes. It's shutting off. No way. Never would have thought that. And one more time. Oh, now it's refusing to do anything. So strange. Okay, can we replicate jumping it with the screwdriver again? Because this is driving me nuts. I've never seen this before in all my years of PC building. All right, power back on. Got light. We're gonna jump. What in God's name? What in the world? Okay, so we definitely did the same exact thing. I don't smell anything as far as a burn or nothing like that. That time I jumped it and it didn't stay on. I wonder if we were, we heard some coil whine on this power supply. I wonder if something just wasn't right. My goodness, this is very interesting. Okay, so, well, at least it's consistent. I was gonna be really, really thrown off if it stayed running on. So I think what we saw there was something preemptive, which it's not exhibiting exactly the same behavior every time, because we did jump it that one time and it seemed like it stayed running. The fans were still spinning, but I don't think we were getting any life out of the motherboard. So I'm really now suspecting that, yeah, we might have a bad motherboard here. So yeah, Let's get the motherboard out of the system, get it on a cardboard box, that way it's not touching any kind of metal, and see if we get anything different by doing basically the same power on tests that we're doing right now, just outside of the chassis. We've got the motherboard now just hanging out on a cardboard box. This is just a motherboard box. So the idea here is we're preventing it from touching any other kind of metal, preventing it from possibly shorting itself out. This is on non-conductive material, and we're gonna see if we exhibit the same exact problem. So I'm gonna flip the switch on the power supply again here on my known good working power supply. We don't yet have a reason to believe that the other one's bad, but we don't know yet just yet. So anyway, we've got a motherboard light, which is a nice indicator on this cheap motherboard, and we're just gonna see if the same issue occurs. All right, so there's a power on. Fans are running. Still running. Still running. I like it. Okay. I think maybe we're onto something here. This looks more normal operation, and I don't hear that coil whine like I heard earlier. Okay, I'd say that's good enough for me to know that it's gonna stay on. Was our case actually causing a short? You know, I've seen weirder things, but all right, I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna get a monitor, and let's see if we can actually get a full post test here. Alrighty. Full moment of truth here. We've got my monitor sitting here next to the system, just laid out on the table, and I am going to flip on power of the power supply. We've got light on the motherboard, which is, like I said, always a good indicator, and we're going to jump and see how far we get. Ideally, what we want to see here is some life, a post-test window. Oh, we don't have windows, but because we don't have it plugged in, but we want to see it get into BIOS for sure. Okay. Yep, there we go. We're in BIOS. So we've got the A320 motherboard detected, the Ryzen 3 2200G. I told you this is a very, very basic PC, 8 gigs of DDR4. Okay, so I guess the only other thing here left to do is we don't have any reason to suspect the old power supply to be bad, so to rule it completely out, which I think we've already done, but to rule it completely out, let's plug it back in and see what happens. Do we get another post test? And then I gotta figure out why the heck this motherboard is shorting out when it's in the case, it seems like. Okay, I just YOLO'd it and stacked the other power supply on top of the other one. We're just testing things, right? All right, so original power supply, plug back in. We're gonna do a jump test. What do we get here? Yes, no, yes, no. Come on, baby. You gotta be joking. Now I'm not getting the post. It's running. That's the main thing here. But I'm not getting a post. This thing is sending me in circles. Because we tried the other power supply that I know is good without removing it from the case. And it did this, where, well, it didn't even run, it just shorted. But now, for some reason, with my old power supply plugged back in, I'm not getting a post. So, all right, let's go right back to the good power supply and make sure something didn't just happen in my haste of trying to double check the old power supply. I hope not. All right, plug back in to the Segotep power supply that I know is good. I'm getting a little lost here now. This is the fun of troubleshooting hardware sometimes. So make sure we can replicate the post test that we got before. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, we got it again. I don't know, guys. I really don't know. Because we were producing a short with the good power supply that's powering the system right now, but the motherboard still installed in the case. It may be evidence, based on what we see here, to not trust that old power supply after all. Well, I can't even get a post test out of it. That'd be for one. But I think the only thing really left here to do is to put everything back into the case, reassemble everything with the Segotep power supply, the known good one, and see if everything just normalizes. And I guess one other thing I can do too since we got stuff kind of already laid out, can this power supply actually power my test bench? So I might actually give that a shot first before I go full on into reassembly, just to see if it'll power on that system. All right, moment of truth to see if this power supply is really the culprit, but we've got it all set up on my test bench. Here we go. Let's see what we get. The good thing about this motherboard I like to use for my test bench is it's got debug LEDs that'll tell me if something's going on. So let's see what we get right now. One is statically stuck on right now, and it's indicating CPU. Interesting. Maybe it had something to do with the power delivery to the actual CPU. Yeah, it's steady on. I don't know if that's visible from the camera. No, it's not. I can probably try to tilt the board up a little bit. But yeah, that top LED that's red is stuck on CPU. The only thing I just don't understand is why we had kind of the short issue before with the other power supply. Some weird stuff going on for sure. But I guess the ultimate thing to do now is just to get the PC reassembled with the new power supply, put it through a gambit of benchmarks to make sure it's really using up all the power it can and make sure it stays stable. Most importantly, turns on again, because we weren't even getting that far. Okay, we are back with the PC fully reassembled. Got the power supply, the known good working power supply installed, all cabled up. So now is the final moment of truth. Was it just the power supply after all? Ma'am, if you will do the honors of turning on your PC. Okay. All right, here it goes.
So, is it still gonna keep working? Okay, it's still on.
Okay, do we got anything on the screen, the monitor?
Let's see. Yes.
Oh, looking like it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got a post. She's back alive.
She's in business.
All right, so you can definitely be using it again, playing your Roblox. Roblox. Yes, yeah, I always miss it. But yeah, so I guess the last thing to do here, guys, is yeah, we do have signs of life, but I want to put it through some benchmarks, make sure that everything is 100%. But we're definitely looking pretty good. Looks like one of the fans just did something weird. We'll take a look at that, but that's neither here or there. But we got a working PC, and I think it's just cycling through different fan profiles. It's distracting me. So anyway, we'll get it benchmarked up and then just basically sum up this video. Alrighty, so bad power supply, and to be quite frank, that's pretty much what I was expecting based on a little bit of the symptoms that we were seeing. However, wanted to make sure, and based on the symptoms, it was doing that kind of power ramp up and then shut down. So it wasn't immediately evident to me that at least that there was a short. Maybe there wasn't a short after all, and we just simply were not able to fully use the whole power delivery of the power supply, because as we saw that we were not able to actually what looks like deliver power through the EPS cable to the motherboard. And that was also very evident based on me taking the same power supply and putting it on my test system and it showing the same symptoms. Now, why the system acted kind of weird and buggy when I took the other power supply and didn't remove all the components from the PC, but just plugged it into the 24-pin and 8-pin EPS, we had kind of the same symptoms happening. I don't really have an explanation for that other than a buggy nature. So if you guys have a better way of describing what was going on there, let me know in the comments below. I think we just, the sheer fact of so many times attempting to power on, power off, power on, power off, we might have done something strange to the motherboard that somehow resolved itself by removing it from the system. So luckily, the power supply being bad that it is, and all those power on, power offs didn't take any other components with it. But all in all, guys, I hope you guys found the video informative, so that way you have at least something to go on in terms of diagnosing and seeing symptoms that might occur when it comes to a dying power supply. Hopefully my approach showed you guys some things to check along the way without completely disassembling your PC. Ultimately, that's what I ended up having to do, but that's ultimately sometimes where you have to end up when it comes to actually troubleshooting and resolving an issue with a PC. And I guess lastly, what I think I'll do is I'll get one of those inline power supply testers just to see kind of what is fully going on with this power supply, just for my own curiosity's sake. Maybe I'll make some content into that in the future, but aside from that, thanks for tuning into this one though. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you in the next one.